Hello. Today is Friday of the second week of Easter. A question I often ask myself is, what kind of person was Jesus? If you met him, what would you think of him? Well, our gospel today is one of the feeding stories. Jesus feeds 5,000 men, plus all the women and children, of course. Why would so many people be attracted to him? The text says because he had fed them. Well, we don't have any record of any other feeding stories in the Gospel of John. So he must have fed them in some other way, by the way in which he engaged with them. How many people is 5,000 people, or say 10,000, if you add all of the women and the children? Well, Holy Trinity Parish seats 650 people. So you double that more or less, that's 1,000, then 10 times that many. It would certainly fill the space between 36th Street and 37th Street, spilling beyond O and N toward Prospect and P. That's quite a large group. Why would so many people come? To meet him, to see him, to be in his presence. I'd like to read you a little description of Jesus that comes from all people from Oscar Wilde. He wrote this when he was in prison in 1897, and he wrote it not as a theologian, not as a believer, but as an artist, as someone who came to know Jesus by reading the Gospels in Greek. He had been a Greek scholar in undergraduate school, and he had read the Gospels as literary pieces. Here's what Wilde has to say. One always thinks of Jesus as a young bridegroom with his companions, as indeed he somewhere describes himself, as a shepherd straying through the valley with his sheep in search of green meadows or cool streams, as a singer trying to build out of music the walls of the city of God, or as a lover for whose love the whole world was too small. His miracles seem to me to be as exquisite as the coming of spring, and quite as natural. I see no difficulty at all in believing that such was the charm of his personality, that his mere presence could bring peace to souls in anguish, and that those who touched his garments or his hands forgot their pain, or that as he passed by on the highway of life, people who had seen nothing of life's mystery saw it clearly, and others who had been deaf to every voice but that of pleasure heard for the first time the voice of love, or that evil passions fled at his approach, and people whose dull, unimaginative lives had been but a mode of death rose, as it were, from the grave when he called them, or that when he taught on the hillside, the multitudes forgot their hunger and thirst and the cares of the world, and that to his friends who listened to him as he sat at meat, the coarse food seemed delicate, and the water had the taste of good wine, and that the whole house became full of the odor and the fragrance of nard. Jesus saw that love was the first secret of the world, the first secret for which the wise men had been looking, and that it was only through love that one could approach either the heart of the leper or the feet of God. So who is Jesus for you? Today's gospel, this whole Easter season, invites us into this sense of Jesus the Good Shepherd, calling us, inviting us, sharing friendship with us. Of course, Holy Week reminds us that there was a very courageous Jesus too, one who was intolerant of any sort of injustice, who was ready to fight on behalf of the poor, on behalf of all of us, against all the forces of evil that are so prevalent in our world today. So these readings invite us into a reflection today, a deeper reflection on who is Jesus for you or for me personally. If he were here, how would he speak with us? How would we enjoy his company? What might we say in return? These are wonderful, wonderful readings, a wonderful season of this year and so appropriate for this pandemic time when we risk living in fear. The psalm says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Of whom should I be afraid?" We need not be afraid because the Jesus whom Oscar Wilde has just described to us is always with us.